Okay, let's continue with this number 15. So I've got this function, -3 cosine of 3x plus pi minus 2. So we found the amplitude in the last video, the period, and the step size. So I guess now we need to find this new starting value. So the new starting value, the new start is going to be where do the inputs into cosine finally equals 0, because when you plug in 0 into cosine, that's where it will start the cycle. So it looks like it's going to be at negative pi over 3. So that's going to be our phase shift. In other words, our new starting value. So I've got my amplitude, my period, more importantly, my amplitude, my step size, and my phase shift. So if I draw this thing, well, if it's going to be cosine, well, first, cosine usually starts off at a peak, midline, valley, midline, peak. In this case, the negative is going to flip that. And so it's actually going to be at a valley, a midline, a peak, a midline, and a valley, right? So it's going to be reflected across the x-axis. It looks something like this, right? But I know that first off, the -2 is telling me that my midline is y is equal to -2. So my midline is y is equal to -2. And then since my amplitude is 3, that means when I think about my envelope that envelops the function, I'm going to go from -2 plus 3 up to 1, and from -2 minus 3 down to -5. So that's going to be where my function is. So here's my first value, my second, my third, my fourth, and my fifth. So in other words, I take 1, 2, 3, 4 steps away from this initial starting point. Well, we said that the initial starting point was at negative pi over 3, but I think it should be clear we're going to be taking steps of pi over 6. So to make all of my addition of steps nice and easy, I want to think about negative pi over 3 as -2 pi over 6. So I'm going to start out at -2 pi over 6. I'm going to take a step to negative pi over 6, then a step to 0. So this is actually 0. Then I'm going to take a step to what? Pi over 6, and then a step to 2 pi over 6. So it should be pretty clear that if you go from 2 pi over 6 and say how far was it back to -2 pi over 6, you're going to get 4 pi over 6 or 2 pi over 3, and that is our period. So the distance between our points worked out nicely. Okay, so that was just a quick verification that everything's right. All right, so that's 15. Then if we go back and look, we wanted to do 27, 29, and 48. So 27, let's do 27. So for 27 and then 29. So I'll just take a picture of both of those. So 27 and 29, done. So done, copy and delete. Okay, so for 27 and 29, those are functions. So let's do 27 first. When we look at this, we see that our A is 5, our B is 3. I think we also see that our D is equal to 0. So in this case, my amplitude for 27 is absolute A, so it's 5. My period is 2 pi over absolute B, so it's 2 pi over 3. And then my midline is at 0. Then my step size is I take my period, I divide it into 4 equal steps. So that means I take my period and multiply it by 1/4. So you end up getting 2 pi over 12 or pi over 6. This should look pretty familiar. So then my new starting value, in other words, my phase shift, is just going to be when are my inputs into sine equal to 0, because that's when my sine function thinks that it will start the process. So I end up getting pi over 6 as my new starting value. Hey, that's nice because my step size is also pi over 6. So now I'm ready to start. Well, since my midline is at 0 and sine starts at a midline, then goes to a peak, midline, valley, midline, I know that my sine graph is going to look something like this, where you're going to have this nice envelope where you've got y is equal to -5, y is equal to 5, and I got my 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. Well, I start off actually, let me go back. I start off over here at pi over 6. So I start off at pi over 6, and I take one step to 2 pi over 6, then 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, and 5 pi over 6. And there is my graph. Good job. So then when we're ready to do 29, I can just duplicate that page. So then for 29, so now for 29, I know that A is equal to 3, B is equal to 1/2, and I still see that my D is equal to 0 here. So my amplitude, absolute A, is equal to 3. My period, which is 2 pi over absolute B, is equal to 2 pi over 1/2. Invert and multiply and get 4 pi, right? So that means that my step size is equal to period cut into 4 pieces. So it's 4 pi over 4 cut into fourths is just a pi. So there's my step, my amplitude. I guess I just need my new starting value. So my new starting value, also called my phase shift, is just found by thinking, hey, when are my inputs, into the cosine function going to be equal to 0? Because when they're equal to 0, then cosine thinks it's going to start the cycle. It looks like that's going to happen at 2 pi over 4, which is the same as pi over 2. So pi over 2 is my new start. I'm taking steps of size pi. Well, guess what? That's the same as 2 pi over 2. And to make the denominators work out nice, that's how I'm going to think about my step size. So I'm ready to go. So my midline's at 0. Cosine starts at a peak and goes to midline, valley, midline, peak. It's nice and rounded. And so then from there, let's see. In this case, I want to be careful because I actually start at pi over 2, and then I take a step of size 2 pi over 2. So I get to 3 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2, and finally 9 pi's over 2. Let's see. And if you take 9 pi over 2, how far is it from here to here? Is that actually equal to my period length? Well, yes. This minus this is 8 pi over 2, which is just 4 pi. So yes, the period that we drew is exactly equal to the period that we computed, so we're happy. Well, then we say, so where's our envelope? We've got what? 3 and -3. So the average value of this function is 0, and it just bounces back and forth between 3 and -3. So that's 29. Let me go back and see what the others one. Oh man, we just got one more, 48. Look at us. So I go this way, and I say, what is 48? So I'm going to look at 48. I think that's a cool applied problem we had. So I'm going to go down here and click. Let's see, paste. So here's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is on the next page. So let's see what it says. So I'm going to take a picture. We're doing on time. Still got a little bit of time before I have to leave. So if we look at this, it says A equal to 1 is 100% potential. So popular biorhythm theory, the popular biorhythm theory, the theory of biorhythms, uses graphs of 3 simple sign functions to make predictions about people's physical, emotional, and intellectual potential for a particular day. Okay, it says the graphs are just A sine of BT, where T is in days, T equals 0 is birth. That's ridiculous. Okay, so find the value of B for the physical cycle, which has a period of 23 days. Okay, so we know that we have something that looks like this, and it says that has a period of 23 days. And it wants to know the B value for, so this is the what? This is the physical. Then it says find the B value for the emotional. So again, it's going to do this, but for the emotional, it's every 28 days. And then for the intellectual, the brains of the outfit, it's going to be a cycle like this, but it takes every 33 days. So that's the what? Intellectual. Cool. Where we said for each one of those, 1 is 100% potential. So A equal to 1 denotes 100% potential. So it looks like you can get up to 100% potential and then go down to negative 100% potential, where you're just like the exact opposite. That's pretty interesting. Okay. So that's what we got going on. So from this, we should be able to say that if period is equal to 2 pi over absolute B, and your period is 23 days, then you can just take this up here and go, look, 23 is equal to 2 pi over absolute B. So if you multiply both sides by B, you're going to get that 23B is equal to 2 pi. In other words, B is just equal to 2 pi over 23, right? And I think very similarly, you're going to find, since it's exactly the same, right, you're going to find here that this B value is 2 pi over 28, and this B value should be 2 pi over 33. So now it says evaluate the biorhythm cycles, so each one of them, for a person who has become 21 years of age and is exactly 7,670 days old. Wow. Okay. So in other words, I want to find for my physical, so that was part A. So now for part B, I'm going to duplicate this page. We're really close to being done. Duplicate this page. So if I look right here on my cycles, let me remind me. So that's for intellectual. This is for emotional. And this is for physical up here. Right. Okay. So for my physical, my function is y is equal to 1 sine, but I'm not going to put 1 there. But a is equal to 1. So sine of 2 pi over 23 t. So we want to evaluate what happens after, so this is 2 pi over 23 times 7,670. So we need to find the sine of whatever that angle is. Then for emotional, what we're going to do is our function is the sine of 2 pi over 28t. And so we want to evaluate that sucker at 2 pi over 28 at 7670. It's going to be a multiply. And then for intellectual, we're going to take y is equal to sine of 2 pi over 33 and multiply it by 7670. Right? So we're going to go over here to our old buddy Desmos. We go to Desmos. And we're going to go the sine of, what did it say? So we need the sine of 2 pi divided by 23, 7670. So I need a fraction. So I need 2 pi. No. 2. Do you see pi? I'm just going to do it this way. 2 pi. So 2 pi divided by what? Divided by 23 times 7670. Divided by 23. I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go times 7670. 76, delete 70. And so on that exact day, we get 0.136, right? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go done. Copy and delete. So that means that when we think about moving this out of the way, everybody go this way. So that means that here, here for physical, so physical is approximately, 13.6% of potential on that day. So man, we were feeling pretty weak. Only about 13.6%. Then we go to emotional is going to be over 28. So then emotional is going to be right here. It's going to be over 28. Woo! We're actually negative 0.434. Negative 0.434. Negative 0.434. Copy delete. Negative 0.434. So for emotional, just about negative 43.4%. So wow, we're really not feeling very emotional. We're feeling pretty crappy emotionally. We're not feeling super great physically. Let's see what our brain is doing at 2 pi over 33. So for 2 pi over 33, we were actually at 45.8. 45.8. Bloop, bloop. Done. Copy and delete. 45.8. So that is a paste. And so it's about 45.8% of potential. So really, man, intellectually, we're about running on half gas, which is not too bad. Physically, feeling pretty weak at 13%, but emotionally, we were definitely in the crapper at negative 43.4% emotionally on that day when we were exactly 7670 days old. So for more information on that, you can look up the theory of biorhythms and how physical, emotional, and intellectual change throughout your life. And that's pretty amazing, yeah? So have a great rest of your day.